A sad and twisted tale, the death of public access TV in Pembroke, Massachusetts, written by John McHugh, illustrated by Laura McHugh, and read to you by Margaret Jones. Once upon a time, in a little town called Pembroke, there was a fine and true TV studio of 25 glorious and happy years. This studio was funded by the subjects of Pembroke and available to all with the best of equipment and experienced persons to assist the subjects whenever desired. Truly, the subjects were happy. Their studio was for them, and their 3 TV channels showed material that concerned only the subjects of Pembroke. One sad day, on the 9th of May, the earls of the studio approached the 5 kings of the land and said, "Dear sirs, your burdens of this kingdom are truly great. Would it not be a relief to thou to give us full power over all cable access operations, thus relieving you of any possible problems that may arise?" The 5 kings said with great pleasure, "Why, yes, that sounds terrific. And since one of you earls is also a king, we truly can trust you to do our bidding." With a unanimous vote of the kings, it was made so, and the earl's power to control, close, dismantle, and destroy the public studio became total. The newest manager of this studio, being a fine religious bend, was so good at his job that in only 3 years he amassed a sizable fortune of the subjects' money. He planned to use the $309,863.50 saved to expand the high school with a larger studio for the children and to build 2 more sound stages across the hall. When the experienced and pious manager asked the earls of the studio in December 2011 if this fine fortune could be used for the children, he was rejected, for the earls would dictate when and how to use the money. In fact, the decree was that no purchases could be made from that day forward. They were, after all, the unseen and supreme rulers of the studio. Then one day, and we do not know why, the earls of the studio sold the subjects' cable access operations, the studio, all the fine equipment, Mac computers, and even the $309,836.50 of the subjects' money that the manager had amassed by thrift and by the donation of his 4% pay raises to a Plymouth corporation for $1. The determined earl, who also was a king, searched for and found the studio, for he had never been there before, and in a great rage fired the manager and the long-time womanly goddess, whose name he did not remember. His rage and hatred for the studio was so great that the police were summoned to secure their safety. The subjects of Pembroke went twice to see the 5 kings on their thrones and asked what could be done. The largest king rubbed his nose and said, "You are not on my agenda for this evening. I prefer to talk about recycling and Boy Scouts. As my power is so great, you will respect my process." The subjects were deeply saddened and made it very clear that they would return at the next king's meeting in greater numbers to convince the kings to undo the evil that the earls had bestowed upon them. Seeing conflict, the kings hastily postponed their meeting to coincide with the presentation of their favored Plymouth corporation. The largest king then reminded his weary subjects to respect his process and endure Plymouth's endless sales pitch. When the Pembroke subjects finally were granted audience, they all decreed that the 5 kings should undo the evil spell document cast upon them by the wicked studio earls. They cried in unison to banish the Plymouth corporation to Plymouth, from whence it came, and unlock the door to their captive studio. The subjects said that the king's power was great enough, with full right and authority, to banish the Plymouth corporation. The 5 kings were unimpressed and reminded the subjects that the wicked earls held full power. Well, the next morn, the kings and their council quickly realized that their subjects were aware of their plot. They weren't so stupid after all. The subjects knew that the studio earls did not have authority to transfer the 3 broadcast locations and cable access holdings. Lawsuits may be pending, so the kings acted to protect their chosen Plymouth Corporation and Plymouth's interests. The kings pretended not to know that the people wanted to keep their channels and public studio in and for Pembroke. The kings pretended that people wanted Plymouth to rule their public access operations. The kings pretended that the people would forget about the king's transgressions within 2 weeks. On July 2nd, 2012, the 5 kings in all their glory decreed that they really did possess supreme power over cable access operations in Pembroke. Ignoring the cries of their subjects and without offering explanation, for they claimed great and powerful control without need to address concerns of lowly subjects, they signed papers donating all of the kingdom's present and future money and assets to Plymouth. If you should dare to doubt this sad and twisted tale, turn your TV to channels 13, 14, or 15. The End. As written by John A. McHugh, who now is a most lowly Pembroke resident, voter, and displaced volunteer.
Loretta and Leroy.